We are getting a new look at how Americans view President Trump's handling of several issues. According to our latest CBS News Battleground Tracker, 50% of Americans approve of how Mr. Trump is handling the economy, and 43% approve of his trade policies. The poll comes almost a week after his administration announced it would give U.S. farmers $12 billion in what it calls a relief package. For more on this, let's bring in CBS News Director of Elections and Surveys, Anthony Salvanto. All right, Anthony, let's start with how Americans view the president on trade. First of all, how important is this particular issue of trade to them?
Well, their views on it are mixed, but overall, he gets a net negative handling on trade. But what's really striking is the partisan difference on this, because, like everything else, but it's important here in that you've got Republicans who are strongly in favor of the way that he's handling trade, and also with the outlook on what might come of even the tariffs that are being imposed now, where you've got Republicans feeling that it might have some short-term impact on the economy to the negative, but that it'll probably help the U.S. get better trade deals in the long run. That optimism, though, is really confined to his base, to Republicans, whereas it's negative for everybody else. And that split is particularly striking.
So that's the case when you talk about the effects of these tariffs, how they view those possible effects, that you would have this short-term, but also a long-term goal as well. Yeah,
we tried to split that out, in part because that's part of the dialogue that's going on now, right? If there are tariffs now, does that hurt the economy? But then if for folks, especially for his base, who believes in the president and his ability to negotiate this, well, what happens down the road? Does that force the other countries to kind of come around and make better deals for the U.S.? So Republicans seem to believe that, and so you've got this feeling that there's short-term. In the short term, you'll get these negative effects. But then we asked, well, what happens in the long term? And more of them say it could pay off. What's also interesting, Elaine, was we talked specifically to people who said that they were directly involved in agriculture, and thinking like they might have different views on this. Of course, that could be impacting their pocketbook. And what was really striking is that they looked the same as all Americans, in that their partisan splits made the difference in how they felt about this. So if you were involved in agriculture, but you voted for the president, you were with him on this, willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. And if you were in agriculture and you had not voted for the president, then you were negative. So even that sort of pervaded throughout.
That is interesting. Well, what about the issue of the president's relief for farmers? Because there was a time where you could pretty much predict, based on ideology, that conservatives would feel one way about this, and that you would have other folks who would feel another way. But now it seems to be a little bit more nuanced. What did you find?
Yeah, see, that's a great question, because we found that Republicans were with the president on giving aid to the farmers, the $12 billion aid package. So were a third of Democrats, by the way, which I should say in context, you don't find a third of Democrats always supporting almost anything the president does. So it's broadly popular. And I take a couple of things away from this. One is that oftentimes, for all the talk we make of ideology and labels, people are really practical. And if they think something's going to help, then they'll be for it. And this is one case of that. But it's also a case where, you see, this is very much the president's party now. So we saw some Republican senators, some Republican elected officials sort of pulling back and going, well, wait a second, the Republican Party's been more for free trade in the past. That would have normally opposed a program like this. Certainly, what's going on. But Republican rank-and-file voters are going with the president here. It's sort of part of this larger narrative. Even as we head towards the primaries and we head towards, campaign 2018, the base is squarely with the president. And so you find that even then on these issues that, yes, would normally go against conservative orthodoxy, but not here.
Well, you also polled people on their views more broadly on the economy. What did they have to say about that?
Yeah, they give the president a 50% rating on on handling the economy. And we know for a while that most Americans have said that the economy is good, and that they give the president at least some credit for that, if not a lot of credit. Well, look, that 50%, it's half, but it's relatively higher than he gets for handling other specific measures, like trade, for example. But, you know, I think what's important, too, out of this is what does the president then talk about as he starts to hit the campaign trail and as they start to try to win or keep control of Congress in 2018? That good economy could be something that normally a party in power would start to would trumpet. But let's see if that becomes the defining message for the Republicans. It's clearly one that has some resonance, as opposed to other issues that divide more, like immigration, that we find more, you know, deeper splits on. And that's, I think, one of the things that sets up what happens with that feeling of that it's a good economy.
All right, Anthony Salvanto, always great to have you here. Thanks so much, Anthony.
Thanks, Elaine.